Welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. Hi, I'm Frank Wander. I'm here with my amazing co-host Terry Mays, certified culture engineer. Today we're covering a really interesting topic. I think it's bad leadership behaviors you should discard. There are things leaders do. Some of them are just bad habits. We'll talk about them today. We're going to continue on this theme next week, and then the week after, we're going to talk about rarely used techniques that work well that leaders should embrace more of. So we're going to talk about getting rid of things, and then we're going to talk about adding things to your portfolio of leadership skills, things that work that you're probably underusing. So I think that there are a lot of things leaders do that become habits. They may have evolved early in their career. Maybe they picked it up from other leaders who had bad habits. But these are things that they really should discard as soon as they possibly can. And we'll talk about some of them. I think we could start with probably, leaders who just think they have much more and deeper expertise than they actually have. You see this frequently. Leaders at some point in the organization, they acquire tons of expertise, they start moving up, and they don't realize the world has moved on. And they think they still know more than they really do about what's happening. But things change so rapidly. Everybody knows how quickly the world is evolving. It is the age of disruption. It's a digital era. Things are moving fast. Things are changing faster than ever. And I think leaders have to let go. They should be delegating anyway, but they sometimes, you get these leaders of bad habits. They want to show how much they know.
Yeah.
Or they want to feel useful, because maybe sometimes they don't. And maybe they miss that type of work, but they're not really expert at it anymore. Tab?
Yeah, it's so true. It's kind of frustrating actually for people that have to sit in these kinds of situations where the leader has overvalued their value add to a task or a
Yeah.
project, and they really begin to slow things down because they think that they know more, or they feel like their knowledge of it is better than the people that are actually working on it. I'm always a fan of getting as close to the data as possible. When you're working on a project, you want to talk to the people that do the jobs, that deal with the data, that manage the teams, that manage the data. You want to get as close to that information as possible. The number of levels that you start stepping away from the real work that's being done,
Yeah.
the answers get diluted, and the real
They do.
understanding of it gets diluted. Not to say that the, upper level management does not know anything about it. Certainly they do. But if you really want to get accurate information, you've got to get closer to the people that are actually doing the work. And so when you have
100%.
leaders that are higher up, executive level leaders, and they're trying to provide insights and input into lower level activities, it really does slow things down. And it puts that
Slows them
person
down.
in an awkward position because now, they're trying to explain their leader that, yes, you have great, valuable insights. This is not about taking anything away from the leader, but this is empowering the people that are actually doing the work to provide the answers. And
Yeah.
so, as a leader, you want to empower people. You want to make sure that people have the ability to shine. You don't want to be that guy that's or that girl that's always sitting in the room that has to prove how much they know.
Yeah.
Nobody really cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
You show that you care for people and that you value and honor them, respect them by asking for their opinion and not just forcing your thoughts and your ways downward onto people. Because in actuality, people that are working under your leadership really do have to do whatever you ask them to do. That's kind of the way this whole org structure thing works, but they may not be all that happy about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll have that silent, you know, they're saying yes and nodding their head, but inside silently they're saying no.
Well, that's right. They could end up
Yeah,
showing agreement when in fact they don't agree. And I like your word, puts them in an awkward position, because correcting or clarifying things could be a sensitive matter depending on the personality type of that leader. And there are some people who are just very inept at doing that. So it's not a good situation.
yeah, it's
It
really
really.
not a good situation. And there's such a It's such a great opportunity to empower when you do have expertise as a leader.
Yeah,
You don't want to just force that down people's throats. You do want to take that time to build your team
yeah,
and build their capabilities and allow people the room to grow so that now they can be the expert at something and you can relinquish
mhm,
that throne as the leader.
that's right. Well, hand it off to the real experts. Hey, I agree with you. So what do you think about bad behaviors? What would you bring up?
I think
What are
the
your thoughts?
biggest thing that we see all the time, and it happens no matter where we are, I think COVID and just this kind of remote work has
Yeah.
exasperated, just made it even worse. I am so guilty of this multitasking during meetings.
Oh,
So,
I hate that. Oh,
you're in a meeting
pet
and you're
peeve.
on your phone or you're in your email or you're on the internet and you're doing all these other things. And we've talked about this many times before. The
Mhm.
human brain is just not designed to work on more than one thing at a time.
Nope.
So,
It's a
really and
focus machine.
truly, although we call it multitasking, we're not multitasking. We're single threaded machines that can work
Yeah.
on one thing at a time. And so you shift your focus very quickly from one thing to the next. So it feels like you're working on multiple things at once, but in actuality, you're not. And if you do that during meetings, it really can be distracting because there's nothing worse than having a great conversation, asking a person a question, and they give you that deer in the headlights look like I have no idea what
Or the
to.
fake, "Hey, you cut out. I couldn't hear what you were saying." Right? And
Yeah,
you know damn well they were down looking at their phone, right?
yeah, or they are literally sitting in the room with you and they just totally miss it. And
Yeah.
then you call their name and they're like, "Oh, yes, can you repeat the question?" It's like,
Yeah.
we had a whole conversation around this question. It wasn't just a straightforward, yes or no type of a thing. We've had some really good conversation. We need you engaged in the room, physically present, mentally present, so that you're able to do provide much better support in
Oh, yeah.
meetings. The whole purpose for being there is to support the activities that are happening in the room. And
Yeah.
so if you are constantly checked out because you're focused on something else, and I totally get it, especially in a virtual environment, you get distracted, you get bored because you're, not physically there. So you have the
Yeah.
luxury of being able to check out when people that are physically present cannot. So I totally get it. But it's so important to really be physically present and bring all of your attention to what you're working on in the moment so
Yep.
that you're not distracted and disjointed. Some of the things that would just drive me up the wall is we would have a meeting, have everybody come to a conclusion. We all agree this is the path forward. We go out of the room, and one of the people that's sitting in the room that just said, "Yes, this is the way we're going to do it," comes back to say, I thought about it some more, and I don't think we should do that. Like, we just spent an hour in a room talking about this with all the right key players in the room. This is not the time to change the path.
Yeah.
Unless there's some real legitimate reason, this is not the time to change the path. Or people walk out of the room and because they were not paying attention, they don't even know what they agreed to. They just said yes blindly. And then
Right.
when it's time to produce, they're kind of like, huh? What do you mean? What are you asking for? I don't understand. And
Right.
they've got
That
all these questions.
that always really bugged me when, we had a norm that, when you're asked to attend a meeting, attend the meeting, which meant, no electronics, no going off and doing something else during the meeting, responding to emails, whatever people do. And there's all sorts of things they do in meetings. And the reason is you find out later that there was in something really important they needed to contribute and they weren't paying attention. So they didn't contribute that to the meeting. Or like you were saying, later on, they're running around asking the same questions that already got covered and agreed to.
Yep.
And it just wastes a lot of time. If you're really required to be at a meeting, right? And this is about productive meetings,
Mhm.
people should invite only those people really needed and not all the CCs that might have something to contribute. But if you're really needed, you got to attend. You got to be there. You got to be engaged and you got to make the meeting productive because it wastes so much time. I took over as a CIO of one company, and the first thing I heard about the prior CIO is always had their laptop open in meetings constantly or on their phone doing email with their head down. And what a terrible example to set.
Yeah.
Needless to say, they totally failed. But, people do that. They pick up these really, really bad habits and
Yeah.
it's annoying. And, people like that are also the ones who frequently have no problem interrupting other people
Hmm.
while they're in the
Very
middle of sharing a thought. And that is just a bad habit. Interruptions is really bad. I was a bit of an interrupter myself, because I always wanted to cut to the chase, and it took me a long time to get that under control. But I know people do it, and it's a bad habit that people should drop. And there's just so many of these,
Yeah.
you know?
There's so many, even just dismissing others' ideas, that can be extremely frustrating.
Oh,
It kind of piggybacks into that first one where the leader is just kind of overvaluing themselves and
yeah.
undervaluing everybody else. And that whole idea of just cutting people off because you know better,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and dismissing their ideas because you know better, or
That'll
you
never work.
here and done that, or you know what's going to work
Yeah.
and what's not going to work, and you don't even give the person a chance to finish.
Yeah.
Those are
Terrible.
just surefire ways to demotivate your organization. If that's the goal, demotivation, this is a surefire way to get that
Yeah.
done. Because what it teaches people that their ideas don't matter. So why have ideas? Just do whatever you're being asked to do. Don't be innovative, don't be creative, don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah.
And you never want your people that way. You don't want people that are just doing tasks like robots and not actually thinking about what they're doing, thinking about how they can improve and thinking about how things can get better. You want people to be in that space where they can be creative and think outside
Yeah.
the box about what they're doing, because that's how
100%.
you get better. It's not from the dismissal of everybody else's ideas. It's not from the micromanaging. It's not from the, just talking all over people and cutting them off. You really do have to allow people that space and that calm state to be in to be creative. You need calm thinking,
You do.
rational thinking in order to be creative. And when you put people in this place where they feel attacked, then that fight or flight instinct kicks in, and sometimes people just shut down.
Yeah, they do. And you got both sides of that coin, right? Sometimes, people will solicit ideas and then just ignore them,
Yeah.
never get back to the people. And so this whole idea of, engaging people and, using ideas right, I think that people just, want to gratuitously go get the ideas. And then, for whatever reason, they create this, intense interest in gathering all the ideas, never do anything with them, never give any feedback. And I've seen that happen. I think that's just a horrible thing to do because then people say, hey, I'm not going to, they're coming around for more ideas. Jesus, they didn't even act on the last set.
Right. And you begin to think, what's the point?
Yeah, it's pointless.
It really has no meaning. Another thing that I think drives people up the wall is when you have a leader that says one thing and then they do something else.
Oh, that always really annoyed me.
It's super annoying
Yeah,
because it totally erodes away the trust.
destroys
You're
it.
you're no longer gonna have people that trust what you say. They're always gonna double check you. They're always
Yeah,
gonna question you when they feel like they just truly cannot trust what you're saying. If you constantly say one thing and then go off and do something else. Now, that's not to say that situations won't come up where you agree to something and then you have to change for whatever reason, but always circle back to people. When
yeah,
you make a commitment to somebody and you give your word, let your word mean something. It shouldn't matter that you said it.
it
Don't be
has to
that
matter. Yeah,
yeah, don't be that person that you make commitments to people, you don't keep your word, you don't keep your timelines, you don't meet your deadlines, you just kinda do whatever, and just go, "Oh, it doesn't matter." It does matter, and if you agree to
matters a
something,
lot.
if you miss it, own it, own it. Make sure you tell people, "Hey, I told you I was gonna do this, but these things happened, and now I have to do something different. I hope you understand." And once you explain things, a lot of times people understand, even if they don't like it,
Yeah.
right? So there are times when you just don't like the outcome, but at least you can understand the logic. You can understand and respect the person for being on man and woman enough to come to you and own that decision. As a leader, you always want to make sure you're owning your decisions and making your people aware of why you're making decisions and what the impacts are to them. You want to keep open dialogue about that.
Yeah. I mean, excellent point. There's just so many things leaders do when you look across the spectrum of leaders that they should discard. That we're going to continue on this topic next week. We're going to have another episode. We're going to talk about additional things leaders should discard. Some of them will be behaviors. This time, some will be competencies. And then in the third week, we're going to get into things you should do more of that are great tools you don't take advantage of. We're here every Wednesday at 3 o'clock. You can pick up our show. I hope you join us. Don't forget to subscribe to the People Productive channel on YouTube and subscribe to the People Productive Company page on LinkedIn. Really appreciate it if you followed us. You'll get automatically notified when new stuff is posted. These shows get posted automatically. So, hey, hope you can join us Wednesdays, 3 o'clock Eastern time. See you.
Yes.